Okay, y'all, what's going on? Back again for another episode of the Cage of Life. Get into this right quick on this topic that I want to talk about. I want to address in this topic today is religion. And I know it's probably a touchy topic for some people, but I want to talk about it only because I've had a few conversations with people about it, on and offline, you know what I'm saying? And I think that for the most part, I think that, it's an open topic, open conversation. You're welcome to like, subscribe, and comment. I would appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? Drop a like, subscribe, comment, and let me know what you think. Anything that I post, or anything that we post, I say, on the Cage of Life, here at the Cage of Life. You know what I'm saying? It's open, respectable, be respectable. And that's all we ask. You know what I'm saying? Don't be on there trolling, doing nothing crazy. But anyway, man, I want to talk about religion because I'm talking about this because people have like their different opinions about it. Some people have like opinions where they, some people just feels like, so I hear some people say they're not religious or they was religious and then they not religious anymore for whatever reason that made them lose their faith. You know what I'm saying? So, me personally, I don't think anything's wrong with religion. I don't think nothing is wrong with it. I don't care if you're Christian. I don't care if you're Islam, Buddhism, Judaism. It's a bunch of Jewish. I mean, I've been all of them, and I had lots of fun. But I think that religion is what it's meant for. You know what I mean? Honestly, in my opinion, I think it's for for that person that needs structure in their life. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they need to read that good book. Or they may need to read a passage from the Quran or the Bible to help them get through the day. You know what I'm saying? They may need that. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's what it's for. I don't think it's fair that some people try to knock people just because of their religions or their religious beliefs or what they believe or don't believe. You know what I mean? I don't think it's fair, for somebody to try to do that. I'm not gonna say this young brother's name, but I'm gonna bring the situation up. I remember a few years ago, I met this young dude. He was from Texas, and I think I met him in like Fort Worth somewhere. He came up to me just on the street one day, and he just saw me. He was like, "Man, bro," he was like, he's young, probably about 18 or 19. Probably old, maybe about 20. And he was like, man, I'm trying to tell my friends, about the word of God and, how, religion changed me and changed my life, and they just keep like, just clowning me, talking about, oh, I'm a lame, I'm this, I'm that. You know what I'm saying? And man, I'm out here trying to tell people this, and I could be out here doing something else, And I told him, like, you're absolutely right. You know what I mean? Like, for real, seriously, It's unfortunate because people think that, my grandfather used to say all the time, it's hip to be square. People think that, just because, if you talking about Jesus or you talking about the Bible or you talking about something like that or the Quran, that it has to be You know, it has to be like, oh, whack, or gotta be lame or something, or you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I hate this. I hate that part of society, like, to make it feel like it gotta be like that, or if it's not like, you know, in the norm, or you know, it ain't. You feel like it's not hip to you, so it's whack. You know what I mean? But and I hate that part. Like, you know, I feel like no matter what you believe, you should definitely believe in something. You know what I mean? Whether it's Jesus, Buddhism, you know, Islam, you know, the Virgin Mary, you know what I'm saying? Even sadism, you know what I mean? Believe in something, you know what I'm saying? Straight up. I respect it all day, but I think because I do feel as though some people need structure. You know what I'm saying? I think that's what religion does. It brings structure. You know, it can bring structure to a person. It can bring structure to a situation. You know, it can bring structure to a country. You know what I'm saying? I do believe that it's necessary. You know, whether or not if it was created or if it was man-made or whatever you believe or think, I do believe that it brings structure. You know, and it's needed for some people. You know what I'm saying? It's needed. Like, you have people say like, oh my God, I'm losing my faith, I'm losing my, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? I do believe it's needed. You know, this is like, for example, like people that take medication, you know, or psych medication or things like that. But, you know, for some people, I wasn't a big fan of that. I'm gonna be honest, with medication, period. I'm still not, but I am to a certain extent. You know what I'm saying? Because after being and meeting some people, you know, some people that if they don't take medication, they would be like losing. You know, they'd be doing strange things. You know, like they're just not their self. You know what I'm saying? Seriously. Yeah. I only know that because I dated a girl like that. Years ago, I dated a female. I promise you, this chick was, what's the word? Bipolar. I don't know if it was bipolar or schizo or something. You know, like, and she would be on Prozac. But the minute she would get off that Prozac, she turns to a different person. Like, she just turned evil. Like, straight up. If she not take, basically, Prozac, if people don't know what that is, it's a happy pill. You know what I'm saying? And you take it in. You like jipper, and you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, straight up. And I noticed that she had stopped taking that Prozac, man, for like 1 week. And this chick, man, she just flipped. Like, even the sex was different. This chick wanna rough sex, trying to bite me, and all type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I do believe, you know, structure is needed. You know, to taking it back to religion, you know what I'm saying? Structure is needed. I do believe that it is needed. You know what I'm saying, for some people, because people out here is crazy. Some people, you know what I mean? I disrespect nobody in no type of way like that, but you know, it's different. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean? Even for like some young men out here, you know what I'm saying? That utilize religion, you know, to be a better person. Even for myself, you know, I do believe, like me, you know, even me being Islam, you know, and that helping me to structure myself to be the young man that I am. You know what I'm saying? Well, at once upon a time being Christian, you know, and growing up in the church and going to church, you know what I'm saying? That mentality structured me. I promise you. It structured me. That's why I can write a book like Street Preaching. You know what I'm saying? Which is a straight Christian book. Totally different from any other book I wrote because it's a straight Christian book. 100%. When I wrote that book, I took it back to, you know, when I was young, when I was a Christian, you know, young boy growing up in church as a young boy Christian, you know, and before I like to say honestly, before my mind was corrupted, you know, before I started hanging with the B-boys and the in crowd and want to be on the streets and be what these guys is and do what they do and all of that type of stuff. You understand? Before I was corrupted to being in the streets. You understand? I like to think that. So with Street Preacher, when I'm gonna say it like this. Honestly, I believe if I would have not been able, which I'm not taking nothing from nothing, but if I wasn't on the streets or whatever, if I wouldn't have been introduced to the streets, I wouldn't have to write books like Street Preacher or not Street Preacher, Street Prisoner, or like the Chicago 98s, you know, the books I wrote that's ghetto urban stories. Cause my man wouldn't even think like that. You know what I'm saying? My man would be writing books like Street Preacher or Street Slave to a Boss. You know what I mean? But mostly Street Preacher, which is a Christian book. 100%. You know what I mean? I promise you, all the books I wrote, most of them would be Christian books if my man wasn't corrupted. You know what I'm saying? So, at a young age. You know? So, I think that, like I said, religion, it helps. No matter what you believe, no matter what you say, oh, God is this, or Jesus not this, or Allah and is religion, you know, fake, or whatever you want to say about it. Respect the structure. You know what I mean? Most of the time when I date a woman, the first thing I ask her is, are you religious? You know what I mean? Even though I'm not going to knock you if you're not religious, but that is definitely a plus. You know what I'm saying? Because that shows me the type of woman you is. You know what I mean? If you got, you know, your lifestyle, you know what I mean? How you carry yourself, you know what I'm saying? Are you religious? And if you are religious, did you go to church? Did you go to the mosque? Did you go to the temple? You know, do you read your Bible? Do you read your Quran? You know what I'm saying? These type of things, you know what I'm saying? Like, because I think that's, you know, for some people it's structure. Now some people, they might even need religion. You know, they may be level-headed and have their life, you know, A1 and figured out. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so, but to the ones out there that do, and to the ones that try to knock the ones that actually need religion, or they choose to have religion and go to church or go to the mosque or go to the temple, and then you out here and you try to mock them, shame on you. Shame on you. Yeah. I don't care if I don't go to church. I don't care if if I don't go to the temple or the mosque or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I might still ask you, hey, what's going on? How was church? You know? How was this? How was such and such? I may know more about your religion than you do. For a lot of women out there, they like men like that. And be honest with you, that's a little hint to some of you men out there, the brothers. You know what I'm saying? They like men. A lot of women like a man that know religion. Man, what's fortunate for me is I know religion because I like to think I've been almost every religion, so I knew a lot about different religions because I lived religion, different religions. Islam was probably the religion I lived the longest, you know. But you know, I studied different religions. I read the Quran. I read the Bible. I've learned Arabic. You know what I mean? So, I don't knock it. You know what I mean? I would never knock religion. Yes, true, it probably was once time I even denounced my religion. And the only thing that made me denounce my religion was dealing with people, you know, that were a certain religion that I was, and it made me question my faith because, you know, dealing with shady people, you know, people that wasn't right with themselves. You know what I mean? They wasn't right with themselves, so that's what made me say, okay, you know, if they this religion and if I'm in this religion and they can be this way, you know what I mean? Like, and then I had to go back and say, you know what? You know, why am I mad at them? You know, or why am I mad at this religion? Why am I denouncing my religion and my faith or whatever because of their choices and their actions? You know what I mean? So that's why I say, yeah, it was a period in my life where I even like with Islam, I denounced Islam for a while. You know, even when I was Christian back in the day, I denounced Christianity for a while. You know what I mean? Because I was just like, yeah, you know, I can remember, man, like even, you know, not to sound like a hypocrite, but I can remember being on the streets when I was younger and doing street things and then going into the house and fasting for Ramadan or praying 5 times a day and read my Quran. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, doing what I have to do to survive. You know, like when I became Islam, well, when I took my Shahada, because I was born Islam, but when I took my Shahada, and what had me interested was seeing brothers that was out on the street corner doing positive things, like selling bean pies, you know, or selling newspapers or the Final Call newspapers, and they was doing something positive, and that's what made me want to, you know, be more interested in Islam, you know. Yeah. Same thing with Christianity. You know, being young and going to church, you know, with my grandmother and seeing that, and I was just so young and animated, you know, to my grandmother telling me stories like, you know, when I was 5 years old, I used to preach on the stage. And I used to go around and bless people with blessed or let me pray for you, let me pray for you. You know, I was always so animated in anything that I do. But more specifically, when it comes to like religion, I was with it. You know, I was always with that, whatever religion I was. You know, so that's why I don't knock it. You know, and I think that for people out here that's doing that, man, and knocking people, that's why when I wrote this book, I made sure I specifically wrote in this book because I saw something about how they was saying they was killing Christians, you know, Nigeria and different places like that, and I wrote specifically in this book, you know, we need to stop the hate on Christianity. You know, even though I'm not Christian, and I wrote a Christian book, but I say we need to stop that hate because people just so negative, you know. You know, whatever a person is, respect them. You know what I mean? You need to respect their religion. You know, respect their culture, especially. You know, that's just the right thing to do, man. You know, and so that's why I say I don't respect people that do that. You know, I don't respect people that talk down about somebody. You know what I mean? Especially since when you the one that, you know, how can you talk down about the oppressed when you also are the oppressed? You know, that's like, come on now, calling the kettle black, huh? I mean, come on now. Let's keep it real for a second. So that's just the truth, man. You know, just people need to just wake up and smell the coffee. Yeah. Smell the tea. Smell the fufu. Straight up. Yeah, man. You know, like, my wife is Christian and I respect that. You know, at one point I remember back then when I got married, I used to be so strict in my religion where I used to have to tell my wife, you need to take a shahada, be Islam. You know, but you need to do this, or, you know, but now it's, you know, I respect my wife's religion. I respect that because, first of all, you know, you should never force anything. And that's one thing I love about Islam is, you know, it's not forced. You know, nobody's forcing you to turn Islam. And nobody's trying to come at you. Like, for example, when I walk down certain cities and certain different countries or whatever, and you got these, like, a lot of Israelites, you know, and it's almost like when you walking down there, you try to avoid them, you know, because the first thing they'll do is like, they'll go, well, hey brother, you know, this is the real religion, and blah 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 blah. You know, it's almost like it's so forced. You know, you should let someone come to you, you know, or let them come to you. Let them come on their own, you know what I mean? Let them come and see something for its, you know, they self. You know, let this shit be never forced. That's real. You know, that's what I do not like about certain religions. Even with Christianity, like certain things Christianity is like, you know, people will be like, you know, they'll just try to like, hey, you want to come to the church? You want to do, you know, it's just always like it's forced, you know. I feel like you don't have to go to church it's good to go to church, but you don't have to always go, or just to, you know, put money in something or do this, you know what I mean? And just, yeah. It's not always about that. That's what I don't like about religion, but I don't want to speak too much about the negative parts, but you know, I want us to speak on the positive, or just that part of it. You know, just people trying to downplay something, and that's what I don't like. So that's what I wanted to speak on that for the, you know, I spoke on that a few times, but we brought it to the channel because, just to talk about that, because I don't feel it's right. People try to downplay something and downplay a person, like, that's cool, or downplay someone's religion. That's why I wrote that Christian book, the power of prayer. I wrote that Christian book for my Christian people out there. You know what I'm saying? Like people that's, you know, want to feel like it's hope. You know, it's still hope out here. You know, it's hope out here. And this is a man that does miracles, almost like the modern day Jesus, but not Jesus. You know, I wrote a book about a man that does miracles. You know, in this time for my Christian people. And I'm not even Christian. But I did that for the Christian people. Because I was tired of seeing people down talk and downplay people's religion. I don't think it's right. You don't get no cool points, no player points. It's cap. Straight up. You know what I'm saying? It's straight cap. And you know, player points for me, it's not cool, it's not lit, it's not real, it's not busting, it's not hip, none of that. Cut it out. Knock it off. You know? Yeah. Stop being a bully. Stop being a bully to religious people. And let people live and believe what they want to believe. Alright? Signing off. Peace from the Middle East.